Hello, I'm Glenn W. Hunter, and with me is Tamika Carter, and this is Building Girl Champs, episode 4, No Time to Slack Off. It's a new year. Are kids going to slack off really, Tamika?
Oh yeah, are they kids? Are they kids? Yeah, look forward to it, and let's talk about it, what we can do to, deal with that.
Well, one of the things that is a result, not just of the fact we had some time off, the weather was great in the Inland Empire, but we still have a pandemic that's constantly evolving, both in so many ways, medically being one of them. And the kids seem like kids will do, using that to their advantage, even as school is about to re-engage. So when we think about our young ladies, what are they hiding? What are they hiding behind during the pandemic?
So, it's so funny because kids can hide very well. And, there are times we wish they would hide and they're out in plain sight doing things we didn't ask them to do. But during this pandemic, we've had a lot of mental health concerns really go up. It's been noted, I think NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, did a study and they asked parents about their kids' mental health. And in that study, 3 in 10 parents said that their kids are already experiencing some sort of mental or emotional distress throughout this period. And that was just when the schools closed. And so, with all the back and forth that's occurred, some schools have attempted to go in and do face to face and then had to pull back. So, all of those are getting their hopes up and down and all around right now, and so that is really affecting their emotional health. So with that, I think it's just important to kind of pay attention to your child holistically and to really figure out whether or not you do have to prioritize academics in that moment or education in that moment or just, self care.
Uh, and I think you're so right as you're talking about balancing those two. And I think they also have to sort of follow the lead of some of their teachers. As I've talked to folks in the education presenting part of the world, they talk about sort of the trade off of them. Um, being engaged, not being engaged, and it's even hard on the teachers who are trying to lead to the best of their abilities, and it's new territory for them as well. But all the same, we have to have functional children and we have to educate them. So when you start thinking about mental health or academics, is it a trade-off? And in this environment, which one takes priority?
So I'm a therapist, so I'm always going to say mental health. I believe in holistic development. And I'm going to be real, there's something that precedes mental health, and that's typically physical health. So, when we just talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, those basic needs that, having food in their stomachs and clothes on their back and a roof over their head, those are going to be more important. And so, if we're dealing with youngsters and they either do not have those or are perceiving that at some point they could lose those if they're always kind of in a fearful place, then that is going to kind of be the priority, getting those things stable, or at least getting a stable understanding with your child about where those things stand is going to be really paramount. From then does become academics, and I say academics as it's just school. However, it's not just school. Academics plays a role in especially young girls' lives in helping them develop their self-image. So we don't want to put so much emphasis on emotion and forget academics because they play into each other. So where a young lady can go to school and maybe excel in a certain area, then that's something that she sees as a sense of mastery, and that promotes emotional well-being and emotional health in her. So they are tied together. They're definitely tied together, especially the younger you get, or when you get on the higher end of the K-12 spectrum with your, sophomores, juniors, seniors. Those things become a lot more important. Your girls in the middle, the maybe fourth through 10th grade, it's not going to be as important to them necessarily unless they maybe have had a history of being really, high academics, high, performing well academically, and that being something that is kind of a priority in their lives, despite or any amongst other things. So Again, I'm always going to bring it back to emotion first, but make sure you check in with academics. Make sure you continue to push and encourage and set standards that are COVID or pandemic sensitive, and make sure that you're paying attention to how both of those play on each other. If you know, pay attention if your daughter's having anxiety because of a specific subject. There's something I call specific academic anxiety, and that is what a young person does prior to having to engage in the subject that they don't like. So we see evasive tactics, we see depressive things, we see anger, we see a lot of stuff come out right before math time. And
Mhm.
so, or right before art, or whatever it is that they don't feel they don't feel comfortable about. So again, you just got to really pay attention to how those play off of one another. Definitely engage a professional, myself or others, to help you sort that out for them, and then you can kind of get a better idea of where to go or what to start on.
I'm going to drill a little bit more on that point, particularly on behalf of the parents who are tuned in and benefiting from your insight. What would be an example of one of those evasive tactics that they would use uh, when they don't want to do it?
So it differs by age and how intelligent and slick your daughter is. Mine are fun, right? Or any child who's kind of had contact with a psychology person are fun, because then they start like getting the weaponized words like anxiety, which we don't want to, say you're not anxious, because it's real. They do, but we want to make sure they're like, okay, and there's a way to deal with that. Here's some tools. Are you talking with your therapist? Have you used your coping? Have you used your breathing? But my youngest babies, they're so fun. They get stomach sick. They're always so sick. They just get sick with no symptoms, no anything. And that's got to be hard now, right, as a parent, because we're kind of all on edge, because when no one wants their kid to be COVID sick, or any sick, because who wants to go to the hospital right now if you don't have to? So but younger kids, one of their biggest evasive tactics is, oh, my tummy hurts. And sometimes that is psychosomatic, right? Sometimes that is because anxiety or fear has led to a stomach ache. In session, this is what I work on with younger kiddos, my 5, 6, 7, 8 year olds, helping them to connect their mind, their body, and their emotions, so that they can sort them out and give their parents and teachers more accurate information. So, but that's what I see with the littles. They're so fun. They're always sick. My middle school age, they tend to get like headachy, or they're slick enough to like kind of find a way to distract you. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
so they all of a sudden want to talk about this thing that you've been like talking to them about for a long time right before math. And oops, I forgot to log into my math class. So that's one way they try to kind of, they're really, I don't like to use the word manipulative, but they're very slick about using what you want to do in those spaces to help them avoid having to get into that. There's so many, there's I've seen people use social stuff. I've seen kids say, "Oh, the teacher doesn't like me," or they never let me this, and so a lot of those things can happen, right? Sometimes there are teachers who don't care for the students in their room. But there are definitely ways to look into that and find out if there's something that you as a parent can do, or a way that you can advocate for your child at the school or district or whatever level. And then if there are resources that you need to find to help them be successful academically.
Okay. So good that there are tools available to help navigate through that window. So, but we have this new normal, which continues to be a buzzword, even though it's been with us for about a year now. But not performing to potential is a phrase that has reared its face toward this generation as well. What should we do when we see our kids not performing to potential?
Man, I saw that word on my report card so many times growing up. And I had friends, and they're like, "What does that mean?" Like, what does that actually mean? And you're like, "Is that an insult? I don't know. I don't know. Is that a compliment? Like, what is that?"
Hmm.
And I think, to go back to a previous question you asked, right? There are all these things that kiddos are hiding during this pandemic. Some of them are hiding anger, right? Because this pandemic has caused grief. And within grief, we know there's denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. It's an entire process. And we have forced our kids into like grieving the losses of last year, as well as this year, as well as social life and everything else that happens in a non pandemic world. So they're hiding that grief, they're hiding that anger a lot of times, they're hiding the depression and the fear, right? Because they know that if they show you they're scared as a parent, you're going to react in a certain way. And then that's going to make their world harder, probably limit their freedom. And it's going to be a cycle. So they're hiding all of these difficult emotions, and they're using excuses a lot of times as kind of to cover it up. So, one of the things that's really important as you pay attention to if your child is performing to potential is one, knowing what they're what did they do before the pandemic? What was their academic life like? What was their attitude towards school like prior to this mess that our country's found itself in? And so I use something called the A through G. I actually created a tool that are standards for assessing when someone or what's going on when someone's not performing to potential. These are kind of girl specific, but they do cover a lot of other young people as well. And so they are, of course, geared towards people of color. The first thing you want to do is ask. You want to kind of be open, be ready, rest your face because children, especially girls, are very, very reactive to our facial expressions. So, if you got to look in the mirror, practice that. So, you want to ask, you want to be open when you're asking about the following things. First one, how many Black people are in your class? It's such a hard topic, right? And I've sat and asked my kids' teachers this, and it sometimes takes them off guard, but it's very important because of all the different microaggressions, all of the different self-image issues, the esteem issues associated with race and equity within even the classroom setting. I need to know, is this a place where you can be comfortably Black? Is this a place where you can be comfortably you? Or are there different intersections of race and gender that are occurring within this classroom that are making you not want to raise your hand when it's time? That's number one. What is the classroom culture? How are they supporting you as a young lady of color? How are they not? How are they, whatever? How are they recognizing your differences? Is it, again, a classroom that is highly differentiated? Is the teacher able to teach to several levels of learners? And do they know that gifted comes in Black and what it looks like and how it manifests itself in the classroom? Um, so those are two top things you want to ask about. Then you want to get into the truth, like, is this just too hard? Is this just not your area? Are we going to take a C and be happy here? Are we going to, is passing enough in this area? Are you putting forth effort? Are you actually trying? My dear love, I know you are the smartest child I've ever birthed in my life. However, are you trying? Are you doing what you need to do? Are you filling out your agenda? So are you keeping track of your assignments? So those are important. Lastly, that social piece, friends, groups, cliques. How are those people influencing you? I've said before that middle school age, oh my gosh, they can't hear anything but what their friends and the TikTok girl of the week are telling them. So you got to ask about who those people are. Hopefully you kind of already know who those people are, where they come from, who their parents are, whatever, and how they're impacting your daughter when it comes to performing to her potential. Because especially with girls of color, again, acting white is a big thing. Acting white or being advanced academically or excelling in a particular subject can be something that's seen as a negative depending on the school and the classroom culture as well as the groups that she finds herself in the midst of at school. So that's my A through G. I definitely, with my clients, I actually go through that. It's an assessment tool. We ask the questions, we dialogue, or we process. I ask the parents kind of how they feel, what they've seen. I ask about their academic and educational history. I always get a thorough assessment of that because that is so important, and how that A through G has shown up in elementary, middle, and high school for them. So because of course we have a lot of kiddos who change schools. And so, when they go from all predominantly Black school to predominantly white school, then the culture shifts, then their academic performance and how they show up at school shifts as well. So hope I didn't say too much, but that is what I look at, because again, that not performing to potential is a huge thing. I see it a lot in girls, and that is beautiful because that means somebody is recognizing that they have potential, but they have not figured out what is limiting them. So I'm your gal for that.
Outstanding, outstanding. And particularly as you start thinking about the tactics that they're using and the fact that you're already equipped to help them navigate that toward the behaviors. that both the young ladies and particularly their parents want, I think, is extremely powerful, and in this time of so much confusion, extremely valuable.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow, Tamika, how do we find you?
I am at tamikajcarter.com. That is Tamika jcarter.com. You can go to my website, book a free 15-minute consultation so that we can talk about the needs of your youngster.
Outstanding. Once again, Tamika J. Carter, the Advantage Counselor, and we're talking about building girl champs, and this is no time to slack off. So as we're entering 2021, we still have some schooling to do. I want to encourage you all to support your young ladies academically, socially. Follow what Tamika is able to share through this particular venue. And by all means, let's elevate our queens.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much.
Again, thank you. And in closing, I encourage you all to be safe.